wrote a description for this message today. It said, "We do not stand alone. We are part of an intricate and infinite web of being. We are connected, whether we recognize it or not." There's a story of Jadav Piang. Jadav Piang is a man who lives still in Assam, a northeastern state in India. He lives in this state of Assam, and it's beautiful. It's a bit rugged. It's untamed, if you will. It's inhabited by various tribes that live very close to the land. Through that state of Assam, a river flows, the Brahmaputra. And that river has nourished the land, but at some times it has been unruly and has flooded. In the 70s, there were many of those floods, and those floods did something to the land. They changed course, the river did, and created a huge island the size of Martha's Vineyard, if you've ever been there. And that island was sandy. And as it formed, it just became a pile of sand and driftwood, nothing on it. And Jadav Piang crossed the now newly routed river to this island and noticed on the island some snakes that had died because the sun was hot and there was no shelter for them. Having lived close to nature, that grieved him. And he purposed to do something that he had learned from his youthful days, and that was to plant a tree on that island. And so he went early in the morning and planted a tree and returned the next day and the next and the next and the next. And since 1979, he has returned every morning to plant a tree. Well, what happened was that island began to take on new life. As he connected with that earth there and with those plants, they flourished. Grasses grew, bushes at first, and then trees showed, and animals began to return to that now becoming beautiful part of the state of Assam. Monkeys came, tigers came, birds of all varieties came. And suddenly it was a lush place that had been just a pile of sand with some driftwood. It was that connection, that integral connection with nature that Jadav experienced that allowed this to happen. He has said, "How do you see God?" "Well, I see God in nature," he said. Well, the beautiful end of the story is, well, it's not ended yet, but up to this point is that 1,300 acres are now forest on that island, and they host a great number of animals in that forest, a great number of medicinal herbs that are used, and they have been replenished as they together are connected in the web of life. So whether we know it or not, as I said, we are all connected. And the question is if we do that consciously or not. Obviously, for Jadev, that was a conscious choice that he made to be connected in that way. The truth of it was that connection was there and available at all times. He chose to act on that. We're used to breaking down our world into pieces and understanding it by sifting through those pieces and trying to make sense of it. But in fact, there is much thought that views it very differently. And I'd like to share some of that thought with you this morning. We've forgotten the Eden of our origin, that great oneness in that Garden of Eden with man and woman, with all of the plants, the birds, and the beasts, that great sense of oneness that was lost, and we've forgotten that oneness as well. While we claim that we are one and that we are one with the one, I'm not sure that we really know what that means. At least that's true for me. I'm learning. So let's take a tour with this new paradigm for us, but really it's an old paradigm, one that stems back from creation that's being revisited. So stay with me as I take these strands of thought, these perspectives, and weave them together. Fritjof Capra is an American-Austrian physicist, quantum physicist, I'm sure you might say. And he approaches his study and his science from a systems point of view. And he sees what's happening is that a new paradigm is emerging, a holistic view of the world, seeing as the world as an integrated whole, as he says, rather than a dissociated collection of parts. He goes on to say, from his scientific perspective, in modern physics, the universe is experienced as a dynamic, inseparable whole. And he sees the connection between science and spirituality very cleanly. I will share this quote from him. The mystic, he says, and the physicist arrive at the same conclusion. One starting from their inner realm, the other from the outer world. The harmony between their views confirms the ancient Indian wisdom that Brahman, the ultimate reality without, is identical to Atman, the reality that is. His book has the same title as my message this morning, The Web of Life. It's a little bit heady, but it's very interesting reading. And then our friend, the Dalai Lama, another perspective. And while we know him for his love and his commitment to compassion and kindness, as we spoke of in the Daily Word, here's what he has to say within that context, but one that extends to our sense of oneness. I feel that the essence of spiritual practice is your attitude toward others. When you have a pure, sincere motivation, then you have right attitude toward others based on kindness, compassion, love, and respect. Practice brings the clear realization of the oneness of all human beings and the importance of others benefiting by your actions. Another perspective that I really love is the Native American perspective. The Hopi, who are here in Arizona, have this ancient saying, all dreams spin out from the same web. And then another Native American, Chief Seattle, spoke in 1854. And I'd like to share some of that with you because it's very powerful. Chief Seattle was a Suquamish and Duwamish chief from the area that we now know as Washington. And this is what he had to say. Every part of this earth is sacred to my people. Every shining pine needle, every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every meadow, every humming insect, all are holy in the memory and experience of my people. We know the sap which courses through the trees, as we know the blood that courses through our veins. We are part of the earth, and it is part of us. The perfumed flowers are our sisters. The bear, the deer, the great eagle, these are our brothers. The shining water that moves in the streams and rivers is not just water, but the blood of our ancestors. The water's murmur is the voice of my father's father. The rivers are our brothers. They quench our thirst. They carry our canoes and feed our children. So you must give the rivers the kindness you would give any brother. Will you teach your children what we have taught our children? That the earth is our mother. What befalls the earth befalls all the sons of the earth. This we know, the earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth. All things are connected, like the blood that unites us all. Man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. Chief Seattle. Give you a couple of more perspectives from the Christian scriptures. This simple verse from Romans. For as in one body we have many members, and not all the members have the same function, so we who are many are one body in Christ, and individually we are members one of another. Now in unity, we often speak of one presence and one power. That's kind of a word that we use a lot, or a phrase that we use a lot. That the divine is in and through and around all creation, and its life, as its life and sustaining power. We speak of one mind, sometimes one life, one intelligence, and one spirit mind, in which all ideas of life, love, substance, intelligence, and power originate. I love that unity understanding. I would love for it to be more evident, more real in my life. And that's what I'd like to share with you today. I have a bit of a vision of this. So you might call this my perspective that I want to share with you. It's very much an image. I preface this by saying, if you know anything about fiber optics, you know that a very thin, the size and dimension of a human hair, a bit of glass is what allows light to pulse through and thus carry information. So I see in my vision a web similar to a spider's web, but one that's made of fiber optic hairs. I'm in that web, and it's not only a web that's one-dimensional that I just see as a spider's web, but it's a web that extends both to the left and right as far as I can see, toward me and away from me as far as I can see, and in every other direction. That web of fiber optic hairs just is amazing. So as I see that what pulses through those fiber optic hairs is light. No, not light, but love. We often speak of love as the energy that is the energy of all that is. That's the very fundamental building block, if you will, of all that is, all that we see, all that we know. So each of these fiber optic hairs extend to an infinite degree, and they are all connected. And then I noticed that not only are they connected in one direction, but they're connected to all of the other connections. And I am one of those connections. I am one of those points in that fiber optic cable. I am one of those strands. And I see that connection as being sometimes occluded, sometimes blocked, sometimes just made smaller, that the light doesn't go through. But I see that web, if you will, that incredible web which light and love course through so clearly. And I see that as what it is. And I know when I see that, that my work is the work of finding where those blockages are, finding where those ways in which light is lessened can be reversed, so that that web may be as whole and as complete in my experience as it was in creation. So, having said that, how do I do that? How do I realize the truth? How does it become increasingly real in my experience? How do I remove those blockages? And I'd like to suggest a number of things, but you may have some as well. And I invite you to take a pencil and add to the list. So here's what I've said. Here's how do I do that? Number one, as is true in every situation, awareness. Where my consciousness is, there will be my reality. So awareness is critical. Where is my focus? I have I keep track of things sometimes by sticky notes, and if you see this, I write little sticky notes and I write them on pink so they stand out. Where is my focus? Do you ask that question very often? Do you ask, how do I see my connection with all that is? I think that awareness is a key to that, and that awareness is a choice. You can choose to open your awareness. It may not happen all at once, but you can choose that. So number one, awareness. This is how the interconnection that exists in creation becomes part of my experience. Number two, be in nature. Absolutely be in nature. I think I shared a couple of weeks ago how a walk that's 20 to 25 minutes from my house gets me to a place that I overlook the Mazatzal Mountains. And from this space, my house in the woods, I find that suddenly I can feel that oneness with all that is. I can understand in a new way that this is the truth of my being and of the being of all. Number three, a respect for all of creation. We haven't emphasized this as much as we might. We've kind of made steps toward having an earth care ministry. But respect for all of creation is so critical to this. One of the things I noted as I was reading Fritjof Capra was this statement, that ecology and spirituality are fundamentally connected, because deep ecological awareness ultimately is spiritual awareness. I believe that. And so I point myself to ever more taking steps that will mitigate some of the damage we may have done to our planet, to recycling, to reducing carbon footprint. This is how I support the truth of the connectedness that we have. Number four, Remember those fiber optic cables that I talked about? Let the light shine in, because the light shines in from a divine source through those fiber optic cables in that network that I envisioned. And the light also shines out. I let that light shine from me. I let my light shine. So how do I do that? I might learn to speak my truth in love. I emphasize that in love, because speaking the truth can be done harshly. I also engage in non-judgment. This is one of the things we learned from our Deepak Chopra study, not how important it is for non-judgment. And non-judgment is a choice. No shaming, no blaming, non-judgment. As we do that, we experience to a greater degree our connection in the web of life. And then look for connection. Don't just state that it's so, but look for it. Look it out, seek it out. Seek, and you will find that evidence of connection. And finally, this is one that I like very much: build unity. So that's what we call ourselves, Unity of Payson, Unity Worldwide Ministries, Unity, the Unity Movement. Let us build that unity. How do we do that? Well, we're in a time of great separateness in our country. What can you do to build that unity? Maybe using some of those tools of non-judgment and speaking the truth. You can engage with someone who is quite seemingly different than you, but still part of that great web of life. Can we build unity? Can we speak kindly? Can we speak considerately? Can we withdraw from judgments and characterizations? Can we look for what is common to us and not what is different in us? So I challenge us today to do as the words to the classic Unity hymn say: weave, weave, weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Neal. And I've always loved the image of that we are all part of the tapestry.